Welcome to Scene Explainer. The movie begins with Leif, the king of Volsung land, telling his people the story of how he met his lover, Sigrid. He was fighting off foreign invaders from his land, and was seemingly losing when all of a sudden, a fearless female fighter came to light and killed all the invaders. Shortly after, Valkyries came to take all the dead bodies but left out Leif and Sigrid, and before they left, they bowed to her. The king and his guards returned from their expedition, and all the guards were looking at Sigrid with awe. Sigrid, knowing that they have already heard the story, decided to tell them her own version, which made all of them burst out in laughter. Leif then decided to surprise Sigrid. He took her to a house that he had been building which they're going to stay in after they are married. She was very delighted on hearing the news and they made out after. Sigrid then tells Leif that she'll be happy if he could see her place, insisting that it's beautiful over there, and Leif agreed to follow her there. Hervaer, who happens to be her friend, warns her that her wedding with Leif might anger the gods. Leif then went to his father's grave to ask for his blessings on their marriage, and if he approves, then he should let him draw out his sword, which he later did. Leif and Sigrid are on their way to her place, then she blows a horn which brought out a bridge for them to pass. They eventually got to the other side of the bridge and Sigrid paid her respects. All of a sudden, two giants broke out of the forest and was fighting profusely. Sigrid went to hug them and Leif discovered that they were her sister. The giants took them to the gates of Jotunheim, and there she rekindled with her father. Sigrid's father had a rule of not dining with men, but Leif offered him his father's sword as a sign of peace, and also brought a treasury as the bride price for his daughter, after which he agreed to the wedding. Sigrid's father informed her that they're in a slow war now, and the gods do not attack as often as they did before. The day of their wedding arrived, but a weird salamander kept on observing. Sigrid's father Glommer blessed their bond, and the couples exchanged gifts as it was tradition. But all of a sudden Thor and his brother Balder descended from Asgard to the wedding ground in search for Loki. Glommer told Thor that Loki isn't in their land and insisted he leaves immediately. This incurred Thor's wrath and laid siege on the land. Glommer instructed Sigrid to take the children to safety, then her brother attacked but was killed by Thor. Thor was surrounded, but he killed everyone in his way by summoning thunder on the land. Thor killed all the giant people and when he eventually got to Glommer he killed him mercilessly. Thor decapitated the whole land, leaving Sigrid and her husband as the sole survivors. They saw the immense havoc left by Thor and was greatly bemoaned. Sigrid then promised herself to kill Thor. Suddenly, unknown creatures dragged her into the ground. When she got up, she saw the salamander that has been following her, and it transformed to Loki. He then offered to help her kill Thor. Loki introduced Sigrid to Hel, his daughter. Sigrid then asked him for a weapon that could kill Thor, and he told her to meet with the dwarf, Andvari, to arm her. They further suggested that she make a deal with the old gods to rekindle the first war. Leif was still trying to dig her out, when she suddenly burst outside and he procked to help her. She then told him about the deal she made with Loki and he was astonished. Leif tried to sway her away from her plan, but she insisted on carrying on. Sigrid went back to Volsung to recruit warriors to join her. The first person she recruited was Hervaer, and she agreed to join without much persuasion. After which they recruited Egil the poet, also. The warriors were on their way, and they decided to recruit Sidekona who eat her son alive just for Freya to grant her powers. A human in wolf's clothing named Ulfr suddenly attacked them and almost killed Egil, but Sidekona saved him and cast a spell on Ulfr to keep him calm. Sidekona told Egil that she can heal him if only he follows her. They all followed her to her cabin and she healed him there with her magic. After leaving the cabin, Sigrid told them that she needs to make one more stop at Nidavellir, to meet with a dwarf who can give them an edge in the war ahead. They finally arrived at Nidavellir and the creature on its gate was awoken. Hervaer attacked the creature first and it prompted it to summon others. As they were fighting it off, Loki came to their rescue to negotiate on their behalf, after which the gateway opened for them to pass. When they got in, they discovered that it was a kingdom swarmed with dwarves. Andvari came out, and already knowing the intentions on why them came, he told them to follow him. He led them to a place where the weapons are forged, and Sigrid immediately reached to grab one named Antler, disregarding Andvari's advice not to. The rest of the warriors chose weapons too, excluding Egil the poet. The warriors were already prepared to leave, but Andvari halted them and insists he come with them. They were on their way. Sigrid then jumped into the water so she could turn the hell's blood on her body to iron and become stronger. While all this was happening, Odin was watching from a distance through a raven. Thor was training his son, when they were interrupted by Balder who told Thor that Odin demands he remains home till he orders otherwise. Freya in this scene summoned Loki, and we discover that she's in support of whatever plans he has. The band arrived at the edge of Vanaheim and laid their camp there. As they were discussing, Ulfr rushed to where they were gathered and informed them that Odin's huntsmen are after them, and already closing in. Sigrid then prayed to Loki so he could tell her the next step she's to take, but he didn't reply her. Andvari then told Sigrid to forget about the gods, insisting that they're all the same, and suggested that they do this on their own. Soon after, Odin's huntsmen found them and they all went on the run. They got to Egil first, but he was saved by Sidekona's magic. The huntsmen kept on attacking them, then Ulfr bid to evade them, pushed down a rock which trampled on them, and the warriors escaped. They arrived at a cabin where they met some villagers. The villagers treated them with hospitality and gave them food, but Leif felt something was fishy, so he told Sidekona and Egil to scan the area. Sidekona discovered that the villagers meant to trap them and rushed to inform the rest. Leif on the other hand saw a chain bunker, and when he broke it open he discovered that they held a prisoner there. This made him figure out that the villagers meant to trap him. Few minutes later the huntsmen men arrived. The warriors on seeing them fled the scene, but Leif before going, broke the chains on the prisoner and set her free. The huntsmen were almost catching up with them, but Thor diminished them from above, insisting that he be the one to kill Sigrid and her crew. The prisoner that Leif saved opened a portal to Vanaheim for them, but Thor was still on their tail. Sigrid tried to attack Thor but she failed. Thor then drew close to her and they engaged in a brutal battle. Thor eventually knocked her out, but he didn't kill her. He proposed to marry her instead, but she declined, which aggravated his anger. Thor then walked towards her so he could finish her off, but he couldn't because she was already at Vanaheim border, where gods aren't allowed to cross, and to attack her would be an act of war, so Thor left. The prisoner then transformed to her real self and received them into Vanaheim. Thor is with his wife in Asgard but still worried because of the incident that happened. Thor saw bloody footprints on the floor and decided to follow them. Lo and behold, it was the goddess of tracks, Grim Crimson. The warriors met with King Tiwaz of Vanaheim, who happens to be a god, who granted them an audience because they rescued On of his foundling. Leif introduced himself and further beseeched King Tiwaz to help them in breaching Asgard walls, but Tiwaz refused to grant their request. Loki threw a worm, whispered something in Sigrid's ear, and she proposed to bring Tiwaz the apple of immortality if only he helps them. Tiwaz told them through his foundling that if they can defeat Fafnir the snow dragon, and reclaim even if it's just one apple from his hoard, then he'll help them. Tiwaz also insisted that his foundling named Thyra goes with them. A feast was thrown in their honor, because the task ahead is impossible, and Tiwaz believes they won't survive. The warriors were about leaving but Egil wasn't going with them, but before he left he told a story about why Andvari wanted vengeance. In the story, it is discovered that Fafnir, who's now a dragon, was once a dwarf and a very good friend of Andvari, but he was transformed into his current form due to Loki's deceit. The warriors now arrived at the mountain where Fafnir ought to be. They then got to the world tree, and Thyra procked to pluck the apples of immortality, not knowing they were standing on top of Fafnir. Fafnir stood up and all the warriors went into hiding. Andvari approached Fafnir and they spoke together in dwarf's tongue, while Thyra kept on plucking the apples. Thyra dropped one of the apple and Fafnir noticed. Fafnir attacked them in full force, and each of them tried their best to withstand the attack. They attacked Fafnir with all their might but all to no avail. They were relentless in the attack, then all of a sudden Thyra saw an opening and shot an arrow inside it. Sidekona took the opportunity to increase the damage and brought out all his guts. Andvari then went inside to finish him off and they killed Fafnir. Before he finally died, he transformed back into his dwarf form and blamed Andvari for his demise. Leif took the apples to the Vamr, and they were surprised that the warriors came back unhinged. The Vamrs rushed at the apple, but instead of regaining their immortality they started choking. King Tiwaz ordered for their immediate capture and they fled, but Leif stayed behind so the rest can escape. Leif then discovered that it was Loki that poisoned the apples. In this scene, it had showed why Loki hates Thor and will aid in his killing. King Tiwaz trapped Leif and Loki in a cursed realm for feeding his people with a poisonous apple. The Vamr finally caught up with the warriors, but Thyra helped them escape, thereby betraying her own people. Thyra escaped with the rest of the warriors, but they came to a standstill when they were approached by a pack of wolves. Ulfr attacked the wolves, but instead of reciprocating, the wolves backed down. The wolf led the warriors to where the Vamr keeps the sleeping god, and informed them that if they kill the god, Leif would be free. King Tiwaz and his guards approached the warriors to end them, although Sigrid told him that he was Loki who did the poisoning. The warriors engaged Tiwaz cavalry in a battle and were almost defeated, when all of a sudden giants of frost from Jotun kingdom came to their rescue. It was later discovered that Egil was the one who brought the giants. The giant then told Sigrid to go ahead and save Leif, while she and her people holds of the Vamr. Sigrid arrived at the place of the sleeping god and she cut his head off. Sigrid woke up with Keef by her side. Loki then told King Tiwaz that the poisoning was Odin's orders, and he was just doing his bidden. Sigrid then suggested to Tiwaz to join her in revenge, and he agreed to follow her to Asgard for war. The warriors came together and told different tales, and when they all slept, Odin revealed himself to Sigrid. The warriors in their full force approached the gate of Asgard. When they arrived, King Tiwaz requested that Thor atone for his sins on trespassing their land, and Odin for gilding the apples. Leif then came forward to motivate the warriors and they attacked thereafter. The war was a bloody one, but the tides of the war changed when Thor engaged. Sigrid and some few others got to the wall and placed Tiwaz's crown there. The battle ended with so many dead. Then the goddess of tracks called on the Valkyries to take their jewels to Valhalla. The remaining few who survived the war went back to Asgard walls in the night. Sigrid pulled Tiwaz's crown that she placed there earlier on, and a path opened for them. They infiltrated Asgard through the path that was before them. As they entered, Freya came in and led them inside. Sigrid sneaked inside Thor's room and wanted to kill him, but he woke up and deflected the attack. Sigrid then discovered that the people who followed her had also been captured. When Thor was about to kill Sigrid, Loki diverted his attention and Leif came out of hiding to save the captured. After their evasion, Andvari tried to kill Loki but was killed instead. Sigrid not wanting Leif to die in battle, pierced him with her spear so he could not come, then left. The battle resumed and it was as fierce as it could get, but this time Loki joined this time. Thor arrived and he engaged in an aerial battle with King Tiwaz. Thor superseded him and when he got down he cut his head off. The whole battle was at a standstill on seeing Tiwaz's death. Thor then procced to smash him to pieces. Leif and Thyra came to the battleground to join the fight, and they were surrounded. More armies dropped from Valhalla too to fight against them. While all this was happening, Sidkona approached Odin, and Odin demanded that she shows him the future on how Thor dies. Sidkona told him that the prophecy comes at a price. Leif was almost killed in battle but Thyra came to his rescue. Ulfr transformed into a full wolf using Sidkona's magic. He then called on the other wolves and together they attacked the armies of the dead. Sidkona showed Odin the future, but it wasn't as he expected it to be. In there he saw Thor's death and he was no longer worshipped as a god. After the revelation, Odin was fading out and he eventually gutted Sidkona. Egil arrived at the scene and saw what has been done to Sidkona and was bittered. But all of a sudden she rose back up and her wounds were healed. Sigrid came face to face with Thor and she attacked him with the joint effort of Loki. Thor was about to finish Sigrid off, but Leif diverted his attack with his axe. All the other 5 warriors joined in the attack of Thor and was gaining momentum, but Thor decapitated them one after the other. Thor got another chance to end Sigrid, but Ulfr interceded, sacrificing his own life so she could live. Thor tried again and Hervaer also sacrificed her life for Sigrid. Sigrid was perplexed after all these happened. She pleaded with the Valkyries to take Hervaer to Valhalla, but they refused and Hel took her instead. Thor requested that Sigrid submit to him since the battle was lost already, but Sigrid's anger for Thor was overwhelming and she attempted to kill him. Sigrid led the other warriors to continue the battle. Thor was about to kill Leif, so Sigrid threw a spear at Thor in his defense, but it unfortunately pierced Baldur, his brother. Thor was overly annoyed, so he attacked Sigrid, but Freya saved her by consoling Thor and she took him away. Almost immediately, Loki betrayed Sigrid and killed her, after which a Valkyrie took her to Valhalla where she met Thor once again, and that was how the movie ended. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment. Thank you.